Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. 155,000 federal employees have walked off the job in what's being called one of the largest strikes in Canadian history. The province announced an investment of hundreds of millions of dollars into the Chinook Regional Hospital. We will explain what the money is going towards. And millions of dollars will also be going into new school projects here in our city. BCN's Angela Stewart will have those details.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says a labour dispute between the federal government and its biggest union will not be negotiated in public. In one of the largest strike actions in Canadian history, 155,000 federal employees have walked off the job after the Public Service Alliance of Canada began a strike overnight. Trudeau is calling on both sides to continue their contract talks.
The negotiations happen at the negotiating table, but the reality is Canadians have every right and expectation to see the services that they expect delivered. We understand it's really important to respect labour rights, and there's a labour disruption right now. It's the first day. Let's make sure that while this is going on, we are at the negotiating table. That's where we expect both managers and unions to sit down and keep the hard work for Canadians.
Federal ministers provided an update on ongoing bargaining efforts with the union, along with strike-related labour disruptions.
The government has offered PSAC employees a wage increase of 9% over 3 years. This fully matches the increase recommended by the Public Interest Commission. And all members of the commission endorsed that increase, including the PSAC's nominee. We have also put forward proposals on a number of other priorities for the PSAC, including remote work, increased shift and weekend premiums, and improved leave with pay for family-related responsibilities.
The Canadian Taxpayers Federation is calling on the Trudeau government to reject what it calls the unaffordable and unsustainable demands put forth by the union. Now, to chat about this in more detail is the federal director of the CTF, Franco Terrazzano, who joins us once again from Ottawa. Franco, according to the Treasury Board of Canada, PSAC or PSAC is demanding a lot of compensation increases over the next 3 years, which would cost taxpayers how much?
$9.3 billion. Can you believe that, folks? They are demanding up to 47% compensation increase over 3 years, costing struggling taxpayers $9.3 billion. It's unaffordable, it's unfair, it's unsustainable, and the government needs to say, enough is enough, no way.
Now, didn't federal employees already receive a raise during the pandemic?
Oh, they sure did. More than 90% of federal bureaucrats received at least one raise during the pandemic. 312,000 federal government employees received a raise. Not only that, the federal government dished out more than $500 million in bonuses during the pandemic. So here's what's happening. Taxpayers had to pay hundreds of thousands in pay raises, hundreds of millions in bonuses, and for tens of thousands of new government employees added. So here's the thing. These bureaucrats are privileged. Canadians shouldn't feel sorry for these government employees who haven't missed a pay raise and were never worried about losing their jobs.
Franco, what are some of the non-wage benefits the union is demanding?
Well, I think if most Canadians went to their boss and asked for some of these benefits, we'd be laughed out of the office. They want more pay for staying in the office past 4 p.m. They want taxpayer contributions into a union-controlled social justice fund, which engages in, quote, advocacy for public policy. Which engages in advocacy for progressive public policy. They want an education fund up to $17,000 for laid off employees. They want paid time off up to 2 weeks. They want 4 weeks of vacation after only working for 4 years. And they want overtime paid at double time. So some of these demands are completely unreasonable, they're unfair, and they're unaffordable.
So how will this strike really affect the average Canadian?
Well, the big one is the big tax bill if the government gives in to the union negotiators' demands. But also, let's not forget that almost since day one, the implied threat from the union negotiators of the tax bureaucrats has been taxpayers pay up more money that you don't have and can't afford, or you might not get your own money back at tax refund time. Hal, I think quite simply, that's cruel.
Thanks so much, Franco. That was Franco Terrazzano, Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from Ottawa. Alberta government officials, Alberta Health Services, and a local dialysis patient were all on hand at the Chinook Regional Hospital in Lethbridge for a huge funding announcement. The UCP is investing hundreds of millions of dollars into surgical care at the hospital. There will also be an investment for the expansion of the renal dialysis program and increased cardiac services. Video journalist Micah Quinn caught up with officials to discuss the new funding for the Lethbridge Hospital.
The Alberta government is investing $11.2 million over the next 3 years to enhance and expand the renal dialysis program at the Chinook Regional Hospital. And I'm happy to say that design on this project will begin this fall.
Alberta Deputy Premier and Infrastructure Minister Nathan Neudorf also announced $237 million over 3 years for operating room surgical initiatives at the Chinook Regional Hospital, along with a $2 million investment through Alberta Health Services to plan for enhanced cardiac services at the hospital. Neudorf talked about how the expanded renal dialysis program will help those who need it the most.
When complete, the renovation will provide 28 dialysis treatment stations, 2 airborne isolation rooms for a total of 20 treatment rooms, as well as 5 home dialysis training rooms or stations, a biotechnical room that will support nighttime dialysis, and additional space for family consultations, training, staff, and supplies.
According to Jennifer Crasdale, the Executive Director of Alberta Kidney Care South for Alberta Health Services, the Chinook Regional Hospital performs 18,000 hemodialysis runs annually for between 120 to 130 patients.
This patient population requiring different levels of kidney care continues to grow, where patient numbers have increased by 20% in the South Zone from as compared to 5 years ago.
Leonard Binning, a local dialysis patient, has been receiving treatment for 10 months. He told us he spends every evening on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday hooked up to a machine from 5 to 10:30 p.m.
Without the machine, I would not be here today. I would not be able to enjoy my wife of 35 years, my 3 children, or my 4 wonderful grandchildren. So it truly is a miraculous treatment. So new and improved equipment and funding for additional bigger, brighter spaces is welcomed.
According to staff from the Alberta government, construction of the Alberta Surgical Initiative extension at the Chinook Regional Hospital is expected to be completed in the summer of 2024. It will support an estimated 80 jobs in construction and the trades. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
The Alberta government announced a plan to reduce emissions while helping to improve the Alberta economy. Environment Minister Sonia Savage says that includes a plan to continue to support our energy sector and our electricity grid. She says the Made in Alberta plan will be quite comprehensive as we make our way to net zero emissions by the year 2050.
Includes establishing tables to incorporate youth and Indigenous insight into the implementation of this plan. We're looking at pathways to reduce methane emissions by 75 to 80% from 2030 levels by 2014 levels. The current target is 45% by 45% by 2025. We're looking at pathways to see if we can increase that. We're exploring reducing the oil sands emissions limit, the 100 megaton cap. We believe that can be lowered. We're investing $25 million from the Tier Fund into ERA to support hydrogen development. There's a huge opportunity to develop hydrogen, both domestically and internationally.
As part of the Alberta Budget 2023, funding has been set aside for 4 school projects here in Lethbridge, including a local gymnasium upgrade. Wednesday's funding announcement comes as the Alberta government is investing millions into different infrastructure projects around the province. Angela Stewart has that story.
It's a much-needed upgrade for École La Vallendrée. A funding announcement Wednesday from the Alberta government and the City of Lethbridge will see an expansion of the school's gymnasium in the coming years.
This gymnasium has been one that's been on the list for many years.
Through the province's capital plan, this expansion is among many other infrastructure projects the Alberta government is investing in.
$377 million over 3 years to build 58 new school projects, including several projects right here in Lethbridge.
The city is investing $500,000 into the build. Mayor Blaine Higgins says he's excited to see this plan finally come to fruition, as it will help continue to grow the city's community.
The work that has been done by this community and its community as a whole has been second to none. And this gymnasium has been something we've been working on for quite some time. And so when that opportunity came and the province came to the table with the funding they did in this budget, and with our $500,000 as well to go towards the expansion, we're going to see it.
Construction will see the area be more than doubled in size, allowing more room for spectators.
Entrance and egress for safety would be a key consideration, as well as space for parents and spectators for the sports. It would most certainly have another court.
As this expansion is still in its planning phase, Neudorf suspects the entire project could take anywhere up to 2 to 3 years to complete, totaling $4.5 million in funding. For Bridge City News, I'm Angela Stewart.
Now, some of the other Lethbridge projects include a new kindergarten through grade 6 school on the west side of the city and the modernization of Galbraith Elementary School. Alberta's official opposition say they have a plan to hire more teachers to help get class sizes under control. Education critic Sarah Hoffman says should her party form government next month, they would reverse the cuts she says the UCP made to education.
Because of the damage done by Danielle Smith and the UCP, classrooms are harder to teach in and they're harder to learn in. There are more kids credited into each classroom. Danielle Smith has refused to build new schools and growing communities around our province. And we are short teachers. So let's have a look at just how desperately short we are of those teachers who make such a difference in students' lives. In 2019, the number of students, this is when Rachel Notley was the premier, the number of students in the province was 730,375. And for those students, we had 37,197 teachers, certificated teachers. This is information all available in the Government of Alberta budget documents. However, in today's budget, under Danielle Smith and the UCP, we'll have 766,280 students in Alberta classrooms. And for teachers, there are actually fewer than there were when Rachel was the premier. There are only 37,039.
Hoffman says the ratio of students to teachers needs to improve in order to create a, quote, well-educated society to power our future economy. The UCP released a video of former Prime Minister Stephen Harper saying that a vote for the NDP in the Alberta election next month would derail our province's economic growth. Harper says it took years to recover from the last NDP government and, quote, we can't risk going backwards again.
Alberta's been through some tough years since 2015, but the economy is finally hitting its stride again and employment is booming. Yet that could all be derailed if the Notley NDP wins. We've seen what they've done before: job killing, tax hiking, anti-energy policies leading to mass layoffs, business closures, and recession. It took years to recover from the last NDP government. We can't risk going backwards again. Vote for Alberta. Vote Conservative.
Well, we had kind of a gray day here in Lethbridge, lots of clouds, some light showers, even mixed in with flurries. Jeanette Rocher is now with a quick peek at the forecast. Jeanette, fortunately, the weekend is looking pretty good if people are looking to maybe hike through the coulees or perhaps a walk around Henderson Lake in Lethbridge.
Yeah, well, that is the good news, Hal. I know I personally am having family in from out of town this weekend, so I'm happy about the no snow this weekend. Not so much the case for this evening and into Thursday. Now, I know I've been forecasting that snow all week, and it hasn't happened yet, at least not in Lethbridge, but Environment Canada is still forecasting 2 centimeters of snow this evening, and into Thursday, we could see periods of snow as well, ending near noon, and then a mix of sun and cloud after that. Still looking at a high of 5 degrees for both Thursday and Friday before we hit those double digits on the weekend. I'll be back later in the show to give you that 7-day forecast along with the national forecast. Hal?
Looking forward to it. Thanks so much, Jeanette. A Canadian comedic legend is hitting the stage in Lethbridge this weekend. Brent Butt from the longtime TV series Corner Gas will be performing 7 p.m. Sunday night at the Yates Theatre. Butt says he's not really used to the size of Lethbridge after living in a place like Dog River, with Corner Gas. He says he's really looking forward to performing here.
They reached out and to my booking agents and said, hey, how about doing a show here? And, I've performed in Lethbridge before, always had a good time. Nobody threw anything, so why not come back and do it again? Yeah, I always have a good time. I always think of a tour as like, you get your name on a bus and there's a whole entourage, but it's just me and my greasy jokes going out and doing shows, and I come back home. But it's, it's still, I've been doing stand-up 35 years now, and it's still my very favorite thing to do. I love it. I love getting out in the road, getting out in front of people.
But we'll be performing Sunday before a sold-out crowd. I'm looking forward to that show. Well, it's almost time to grab your yellow bags and fill them up with food items for the Lethbridge and Interfaith Food Banks. Target Hunger is a citywide food drive that will take place on June 10th. It's designed to help to eradicate hunger here in our city. Mac Nickel, the executive director for the Lethbridge Food Bank, told us the event raised 47,000 pounds of food in 2022. And this year, they're hoping to bring that total up to about 50,000. Nickel explains what you can put into your yellow bag.
We like to see a lot of non-perishable items. Things like canned fruit are big, canned soups, canned meat products, raviolis. Chef Boyardee is always a big fan favorite. Craft dinners, pastas, things like that are really important and what we use to make our hampers up.
Nichols says volunteers are needed for the event, and the official sign-up starts on May the 1st. More details are available on their website, targethungerlethbridge.ca. A recent Angus Reid poll says there was a 7% drop in how Canadians view religious people's contributions to society. Dr. Andrew Bennett, Faith Communities Program Director at Cardis, says people may be unaware as to how religious groups show their faith through action.
Sometimes there's a perception amongst some in our country and in our communities that religious people are sort of part of these exclusive clubs. And what they do in their churches or their synagogues or their mosques or their gurdwaras, it's just for them. When in fact, religious people don't just engage in public worship simply for their own benefit. What happens is that when they engage in public worship in these buildings that dot our communities, they then take that out into the community and seek to live it out in ways that are for the benefit of all citizens.
Dr. Bennett also shares with BCN's Jeanette Rocher how a recovery of tolerance is needed in today's society. That's coming up in the second half of our program. Now here's something you don't hear about or see every day. A car drove through a community school in the First Nation settlement of Morley, Alberta. Cochrane RCMP say a man drove his Hyundai Elantra through the east side entrance of the school, causing more than $150,000 in damage. Closed-circuit TV shows the car being driven down several hallways, causing extensive damage. The vehicle was later located and seized, and the driver was arrested. No other information has been released by the RCMP as the investigation is still ongoing. There was quite the scare during a playoff game between the Winnipeg Jets and the Las Vegas Golden Knights in Vegas on Tuesday night. Jets forward Morgan Barron fell face first into the Vegas goaltender's skate. He needed more than 75 stitches to close the wound, and he left the game midway through the first period, but returned sporting a helmet with a full cage in the second period.
When's the last time that you wore a cage or any of the setup that you wore tonight?
I wore it in college, so 4 years ago maybe, so it wasn't too much of an adjustment.
Short flashback. You were on the PK, anything like that. Did it ever cross your mind while you were on the ice that you had to protect yourself somehow?
No, like I said, with the cage on, it's pretty hard for anything to happen, so you get hopped up on adrenaline. I was obviously really excited for my first playoff game, and just kind of went from there.
He came back and he's looking at me. I'm ready. I said, well, do you need a little skate or something here? No, I'm ready to go. And of course, he went right out and he banged into someone. So, that's Winnipeg Jet hockey that we're all in, and that's Morgan's a perfect example of that tonight. I think Morgan's presence coming back from that, because they all realized how bad it was, that it gave everyone a big boost.
And thank goodness he didn't lose his eye. And by the way, the Jets won that hockey game 5-1 over Vegas. Well, we had some clouds, some showers, and much cooler here in Lethbridge, but fortunately, a warming trend is on the way. A full look at the weather picture is on deck. Well, it was mainly overcast across much of southwestern Alberta today as we experienced showers and a slightly cooler day as well. Jeanette Rocher is now with all of the weather details. Fortunately, Jeanette, the weekend is looking much brighter and better for our region.
Yeah, it sure is, Hal. I know that we are expecting those double digits by the weekend. Not so much for this evening. We're still looking at 2 centimeters of the white stuff falling this evening. Periods of snow into tomorrow, Thursday, ending by noon, and then a mix of sun and cloud. High of 5 degrees for both Thursday and Friday. Before we get into Saturday, there's those double digits. High of 12 degrees on Saturday, 13 for a high on Sunday. And then we're looking at a mix of rain and snow again on Monday with a high of 10 degrees, but all the way up to 15 for next Tuesday. So I would say that is more like it, especially when you consider the average high for this time of year is 14 degrees, average low is 0. 29, that was our high temperature on this day back in 1962, and in 1951 we were sitting at a chilly minus 13. Sun rose this morning at 6:31 a.m. Our sun set this evening at 8:31 p.m. That's exactly 14 hours of daylight today. Okay, looking into the west coast tomorrow, we're looking at periods of rain tomorrow in Victoria, high of 9 degrees, and windy, 60k winds. We're looking at near 80k winds by the Harrow Strait there. 11 for a high in Vancouver. We got showers and rain throughout the day. Into Edmonton, seeing a mix of sun and cloud, high of 5 degrees. 6 for a high in Calgary, and periods of snow ending by the afternoon. Let me tell you, old man winter is not done with us yet in the prairies. Saskatoon looking at periods of snow, high of 0. Regina and Winnipeg both looking at 10 to 20 centimeters of snowfall this evening. That area is under a snowfall warning as we are tracking a low pressure complex developing near the U.S.-Canada border, and it's going to be bringing heavy snowfall throughout southeastern Saskatchewan and into southwestern Manitoba. And as I said, 10 to 20 centimeters falling on those regions this evening. Regina could still see another 2 to 4 centimeters tomorrow with a high of -1. And tomorrow, Thursday, Winnipeg still looking at another 5 to 10 centimeters on top of what's happening this evening with a high of 2 tomorrow. Okay, as we looked at central Canada, we're seeing 40% chance of showers in Toronto. Toronto seeing a high of a lovely 12 degrees. A beautiful 13 expected tomorrow in Ottawa with mainly sunny skies and sunshine. Also expected tomorrow in Montreal. As we look into Atlantic Canada, fairly decent across that region. For Fredericton sitting at 11 degrees, mainly sunny skies, lots of sunshine expected tomorrow in Halifax as well with a high of 12 degrees, up to 40k winds, 30 to 50k winds expected in Charlottetown with a high of 5 degrees, partly cloudy skies, and 2 degrees for a high in St. John's, Newfoundland. Also looking at periods of rain mixed with snow there, and up to 60k winds. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Today's weather report is brought to you by Ridge Utilities, providing competitive rates for electricity, natural gas, and internet, while investing back in communities across southern Alberta.
Around 155,000 federal workers have gone on strike in what their union is calling one of the largest strikes in Canadian history. The Public Service Alliance of Canada said the walkout took place after mediated talks with the federal government failed to produce an agreement. Picket lines are set up at more than 250 locations across the country. The strike includes 35,000 workers from the Canada Revenue Agency as Canadians are finishing up their tax returns. The union's national president says bargaining teams would remain at the table throughout the strike. Both the union and the government have warned the walkout would cause slowdowns at the border, along with disruptions to EI, immigration, and passport applications. Fox News and Dominion Voting Systems have reached a $787 million settlement in the voting machine company's defamation lawsuit. The last-minute agreement averted a jury trial in a case that exposed how the top-rated TV network allegedly promoted lies about the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Dominion lawyer Justin Nelson said the deal shows that truth matters and lies have consequences. Dominion had asked for $1.6 billion in arguing that Fox damaged its reputation by helping to peddle conspiracy theories about its equipment by alleging switching votes from former President Donald Trump to winning Democrat Joe Biden. It will be the end of an era for Netflix. It's about to drop the DVD by mail rentals that set the stage for its video streaming service. It began more than 25 years ago when delivering discs through the mail was considered a revolutionary concept. The DVD service still delivers films and TV shows in the red and white envelopes that once served as Netflix's emblem. The California company says it plans to mail its final discs on September the 29th. Netflix ended last year with close to 231 million subscribers worldwide to its video streaming service. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 3 points on the day to finish at 20,680. The Dow was down 79 points to 33,897. The S&P 500 was down just under half a point to 4154, and the Nasdaq was up 3 points to 12,157. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $2 to $78.86 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 18 cents to $2.19 US. Gold was even on the day at $19.94.92 US an ounce, and silver was down a cent to $25.29 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $11.43 per bushel, barley's at $9.19, canola's at $17.62, and corn is at $10.54 per bushel. Live cattle were down $1.05 to $175.43. Feeder cattle were down $1.25 to $204.68. And lean hogs May contract was down 5 cents to 78.78. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 74.30 US. Recapping one of our top stories, around 155,000 federal workers have walked off the job in what their union is calling one of the largest strikes in Canadian history. The Public Service Alliance of Canada said the walkout took place after mediated talks with the federal government failed to produce an agreement. Picket lines are set up in more than 250 locations across the country. The strike includes 35,000 workers from the Canada Revenue Agency as Canadians are finishing up their tax returns. Christians can help contribute to healthy communities. That's according to Dr. Andrew Bennett, Program Director at Cardis. You'll have more details for us in just a moment. Listen, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.
Here's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar. Target Hunger is an annual food drive taking place Saturday, June 10th, and organizers are seeking volunteers to help drop off and collect the yellow bags throughout the city, along with sorting out food at the food banks on event day. The goal this year is to raise 50,000 pounds of food, and the more volunteers there are to help, the more food that can be gathered. To sign up, visit targethungerlethbridge.com or email targethunger.volunteer@gmail.com. The Family Center downtown Lethbridge is providing a weekly opportunity for dads, uncles, and grandfathers to play and connect with their children. Me and My Dad takes place on Saturdays from 10 to 11:30 a.m., featuring fun, brain-building activities for male caregivers to play along with their kids. This program is free and open to children under 12. For more information and to register, visit famcenter.ca. And that's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar.
Well, hate crimes targeting religious communities in Canada have been on the rise, be it Muslim, Jewish, Catholic, or Christian. So what's behind this concerning trend? We're joined today from Ottawa by Reverend Dr. Andrew Bennett, Faith Communities Program Director at Cardis, which is a nonpartisan Christian think tank. Andrew, you recently co-wrote a report about the rise of religious hate crimes in Canada, and apparently they more than doubled between 2009 and 2021.
We're seeing in particular increase in hate crimes, especially against Catholics. And that was during that whole period when churches were being targeted in the wake of the Kamloops controversy. But then also targets against Jews and Jewish institutions continues to grow. Jews are the most targeted religious group in the country consistently. And when you look at groups that are subject to hate crimes, whether they be different racialized communities or ethnic communities, religious communities, Jews are consistently in the top 3 of the most targeted groups. So that's very concerning. The rise in anti-Semitism in this country is a very concerning thing that we should all be worried about. But particularly the faith communities that can stand beside the Jewish community and support them in solidarity during an increase in anti-Semitic attacks and hate crimes is very concerning. So we should all be very vigilant as Canadians in addressing this, but it also begs the question, why is this happening?
Exactly. It should be concerning to all Canadians. And so why is this happening? What have you been finding from your research?
Well, it's sometimes hard to draw direct correlations, but we've seen through other research that we've done with the Angus Reid Institute out of Vancouver that people's appreciation of what religious communities do is declining. We see that a growing number of people amongst Canadians that are on the more secular side of the spectrum, so they're either not religious or they're not actively involved in any particular faith community. They tend to be a little bit more hostile to people that are openly religious. And what we found is that amongst the non-religious and those who are sort of less inclined to be engaged in any sort of spiritual activity, they are the most intolerant of different religious communities. They seem to only really want to be tolerant of themselves. But on the other hand, amongst those who are deeply religious and very, very religiously committed, they see all faith communities being of benefit to the country, except for atheists. So it's a bit of a flip, but I think it's interesting to note that the more religious you are, the more tolerant you are of different views and different beliefs. And I think that's something that we need to recover within our society, that we need to be able to see in one another, even amongst people that have very different views, whether those are ideological views, ethical views, moral views, or religious views. We need to recognize that we're all in this together, that we're all citizens together. These are our neighbors. These are the people that we work with, that we go to school with. And they might hold beliefs that are very different from us, but we need to be able to see in them the dignity that they bear as human beings. And these are people just like us, and religious people have a role to play within our society and within our public debates.
I believe you were pointing out that Angus Reid poll, right, that was telling us the proportion of Canadians who see the overall contributions of religion and faith communities is very good, or more good than bad. So that's fallen, what, 38%, from 38% to 31% in 5 years, right, between 2017 and 2022. So that's not a very high percentage of people like in favor of religion, is it?
And I don't know if it's so much people who are in favor of religion. I think part of it is just a lack of awareness, or we might call it an amnesia, around what religious people do. So I think sometimes there's a perception amongst some in our country and in our communities that religious people are sort of part of these exclusive clubs. And what they do in their churches or their synagogues or their mosques or their gurdwaras, it's just for them. When in fact, religious people don't just engage in public worship simply for their own benefit. What happens is that when they engage in public worship in these buildings that dot our communities, they then take that out into the community and seek to live it out in ways that are for the benefit of all citizens. So I think most Canadians know that, if you want to take advantage of a 12-step program, you can go down the street to Sacred Heart Parish because they've got 12-step programs. Or if you want to put your son or daughter into Girl Guides or Boy Scouts, you can go around the corner to Christchurch Anglican. Or if you want to take advantage of maybe an In From the Cold program, if you experience homelessness or you're struggling, you can go to a Gurdwara, a Sikh temple that might have their communal kitchen open that can feed you. So at the very local level, I think many Canadians know that this is what faith communities do, but often when we get up to the level of government, the business community, our cultural institutions, they sometimes forget that this is what religious people do. And so that's an amnesia that we have to address, I think, if we want to ensure that we can have a better understanding of who are religious people and why do they do what they do, why do they believe what they believe.
Have you done any research on why people are against it specifically, in terms of what their viewpoints are?
Well, I think just to go back to something I said earlier, there's the flaw on one side where we have our institutions that have bought into an idea that religion has to be a purely private matter. If you're a religious person, you keep your religion at home or you keep it in the place of worship. You don't bring it into the public square. But someone who's religious, just as someone who's secular, can't just sort of remove their beliefs and what shapes their viewpoints and what shapes their life and how they live their lives simply like by taking a jacket off and putting it back on. Our beliefs are something that deeply shape us as human beings, whether we're talking about religious beliefs or ideological beliefs, moral beliefs, what have you. And so I think what we want is all of us, as we engage the public square, whether that's in the life of the business community or in government or in our schools or universities, we want to be able to bring our whole selves into that community and to be able to contribute based on our deeply held beliefs. Now, of course, we're not going to have those beliefs maybe forefronted all the time, but they certainly inform how we engage with one another and how we speak to one another. So on the one hand, I think our institutions have to do a better job of creating that openness and that space for religious people to engage in public debate, to present their beliefs in the public square, knowing that there's going to be disagreement, and disagreement's okay. At the same time, on the flip side, I think faith communities, religious leaders, people from different religious traditions have not always done a good job at explaining why they believe what they believe. Because many of us who are religious, we have tended to privatize our faith. We've kept it private because we think that's what we have to do. We have forgotten how to explain ourselves and how to say, well, this is who I am. this is what it means to be, in my case, a Ukrainian Catholic. What do I believe? So instead of just saying, I'm opposed to this or I'm in favor of this, I need to be able to express why I am.
Right.
And that's important. And I think our faith communities also need to be opening up more to different other aspects of our civic life, to make sure that our places of worship are open so that people can see what goes on in places of worship as a means of educating, a means of informing, and really working towards a genuine and deep pluralism. Diversity that actually includes religious people.
So any thoughts as to what religious leaders can do to change the perception that religion is damaging?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to try and have a better understanding of what people mean by damaging. Is damaging about religion? And religion as a sort of a concept it's a very difficult thing to try and engage. But when we're looking at religious people, and so when we see people in front of us, including our neighbors, maybe our close friends, family members, fellow students who hold a religious tradition and who stand by that religious tradition and believe something very different, we should ask them, why do you believe what you believe? Tell me about your faith. Tell me about what your faith means to you. So we need to do a much better job as a society, I think, to get away from some of the clickbaity approach that we have to engaging one another through social media and so forth, and actually to sit down and have conversations with one another, to be in community with one another, to have people coming into our churches, into our synagogue or other places of worship, to better understand what we believe and to have more of those interactions. I think that's going to be much healthier for us as a society in the long run if we can get to know who we are and who we are as human persons and why we believe certain things. So that's very important. So religious leaders, I think, have to be, we always have to make an effort to welcome people who maybe are curious about what we believe, don't understand what we believe, and to engage them with open arms and to try and explain as best we can who we are. At the same time, on the level of our cultural institutions, the business world, government, there has to be, I think, a greater openness to different forms of religious expression, that people who are religious have something to contribute to our society. And indeed, up until 50 years ago, Canada was a deeply religious country. And there's still a significant portion of the population, depending on how you slice or dice it, roughly 20% of Canadians who are religiously committed. These are people that believe in God, that are attending religious services on a weekly basis, that are reading sacred texts, that want their kids to be educated according to a religious tradition, and so forth. And so that's a pretty significant proportion of the population. And there's another significant portion that are people that are maybe spiritually uncertain. They're not sure exactly what they believe, but they have some encounter with the transcendental. And this is something that's very core to who we are as human persons. And so I think we need to do more, both at the level of faith communities and at the level of our institutions, to speak about why people believe what they believe and what is it that they believe. How does that impact how they engage with others?
Mm-hmm. And perhaps there needs to be more positive media coverage as well, given to how many benefits these religious groups provide for society. So when you think of how many soup kitchens, homeless shelters, you know, all of that you'd mentioned as well, immigrant support programs are all provided by religious groups. So maybe there needs to be more positive messages there.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
Mm-hmm. All right. Is there anything that business or educational leaders could do, any steps that they could take to maybe change the way religion is viewed?
Well, we recently did a project a couple of years ago here at Cardis that looked at provincial education curricula. And we looked at public school curricula at the primary and secondary level in British Columbia, Manitoba, Ontario, and Nova Scotia to get a bit of a kind of a bird's eye view across provinces of different sizes, different degrees of ethno-religious, multicultural diversity, and so forth. And what we found is that often religion was simply not discussed at all in public schools. The province of Ontario was probably doing the best job of trying to introduce religious concepts into the classroom, but other provinces, such as British Columbia, simply don't want to speak about it. And given the trends in our country in terms of immigration, we're receiving a lot more immigrants that are coming from deeply religious countries in Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and so forth, that come to this country, and we want them to come with everything, all that they bring into our communities, including their religious beliefs. So if you have a primary school where you've got a diversity of people in the classroom, and you've got Johnny sitting next to Fatima who wears a hijab, I'm sure Johnny probably wonders, why does Fatima wear a scarf on her head?
That's a really good point. No, you're absolutely right. So there needs to be that sort of religious, almost appreciation for each other's culture. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's not about inculcating a particular religious doctrine in the schools. I think public schools should necessarily have a secular character to them. They should not be advancing any one particular religious tradition. But you're going to have students that are deeply religious. And I think it's important that other students can engage with their classmates in a way that is healthy, and in a way in which they can understand, hey, what does it mean for my friend to be a Muslim, or my friend to be a Sikh? And what does that mean in their life? Because then as those young people grow up and take roles in society, they're going to be much more able to have a broad-minded view about religious people.
Awareness is everything, isn't it? Awareness, absolutely. No, I love that. I really appreciate what you said there. It's too bad we're out of time here, but thanks so much for being with us today, Dr. Bennett.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Dr. Andrew Bennett is the Faith Communities Program Director at Cardis. When we think about Southern Alberta, most of us think agriculture, so you might not expect to find a diverse cultural scene here, but in fact, many arts events, from gallery exhibitions to festivals to concerts to theater performances and even dance recitals, are thriving in the area, thanks in part to the efforts of the Allied Arts Council. But what exactly is the Arts Council, and what does it do? Well, we're going to find out. I'm joined today by Executive Director Suzanne Lint. Suzanne, welcome to Bridge City News. Great to have you on today.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, Suzanne, the arts have a strong influence across the silos and segments of any community. So can you maybe share with us some of the highlights that the Allied Arts Council has brought to the community of Lethbridge?
Yeah, so the Allied Arts Council has been in the city of Lethbridge since 1958. So it was established a long time ago by a group of arts enthusiasts, people who were really interested in ensuring that there was always a vibrant arts ecosystem in the community. They came out of a really strong historical background in the arts. Just to throw out an example is the Playgoers of Lethbridge, one of the oldest amateur theatre companies in Canada, original member of the Allied Arts Council, are celebrating the 100th anniversary this year. So there is a really rich history of arts in our community, going back to when we weren't a community, right, at the turn of the 19th century. The Allied Arts Council was established by these folks who really wanted to ensure that the community had opportunity for arts experiences. They were very interested in seeing some funds that have been bequested by the Yates family go to the building of an art auditorium, a performing arts auditorium. So that was one of their impetuses, but just a real dedication to having a strong supported arts community here in Lethbridge. Over the years, I think we've stayed really true to that mission. Our mission is still to advance and enhance the arts in Lethbridge, to provide leadership for that. So everything we do is about making Lethbridge a better place because the artists and arts organizations are supported.
Sounds like it. So what are some of the highlights maybe over the years?
Many highlights and many sort of moments in history, going back to when the Yates Memorial, they were successful in having that facility built. The council advocated and were able to enter the Bowman Arts Center, which was owned by the city in the mid-60s, and took on and created a home for arts activities in the community back in the mid-60s. That facility served the community very well until the mid-2000s. Early in 2000, the council sort of reinvented itself, and by 2005-ish, we were living on 7th Street in a storefront. We had disassociated a little bit from the Bowman and broadened our community support activities, but we also were working very hard on projects to establish and ensure that the arts were well ingrained in the community. So the board launched an arts rebuilding campaign back in early 2000, which the result is some work done to the SAG improvements, the establishment of a public art program in Lethbridge, and you began to see public artwork being built in various areas or installed in various areas, and also the building of CASA, which is like a huge hub and creative center for the arts, not only in Lethbridge, but really for the region, the entire region.
Yeah, definitely. I think anybody who lives in the area is very familiar with the CASA, with Yates Theatre. I know I love the Yates, and then of course SAG, the Southern Alberta Arts Gallery. So for sure. And Suzanne, we seem to live in polarizing times. So maybe can you talk about how the arts can be used to bring people together?
Yeah, I think that, we all enjoy the arts more than we know. I always say that we all have some creativity. We all pick the color of the paint on our walls, and we all sing in the shower and movement. You see little kids as soon as they can stand bouncing rhythmically to music. I think creativity is intrinsic in human beings. So whether we identify that creativity with sort of the traditional fine arts, it is really all-encompassing. And I think they are a bridge. They're a bridge between people, because all cultures experience art. They're just so intrinsic to who we are. And unfortunately, I think a lot of times we don't recognize their value and the power they have on us. And the power they have to do good things in community.
Yeah, so true. Exactly. You mentioned, of course, the CASA building, and that was built about 10 years ago. In fact, I think it's coming up on its 10-year anniversary.
Big anniversary.
This spring, I believe, in May. So it's become a landmark, as you mentioned, in Lethbridge's downtown core. So maybe can you share with us how this building continues to benefit the residents of the city? Some people might not know, really.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing because lots of people say, oh, nobody goes there, which is really not true. And it's a much envied building. When we have visitors who come into the building from away, they sort of go, wow, how did this happen? Because it is really a purpose-built facility for arts creation, for people of all ages, interests, and abilities, which is a pretty unique thing. So there are all disciplines in the building. It isn't a performing arts center. It is really about that grassroots creation of artwork or learning experiences. There's certainly opportunities for audiences to come in to experience the arts, but it is a place to create art. And it is very unique. It's affordable. It's open, it's welcoming, and really it has visual arts, it has a dance studio, it has a strong music program that's delivered by the University of Lethbridge Conservatory. There's a black box theater for workshopping work. There is a gallery, exhibition spaces where local regional artists can share their work with the larger community. So it is really quite an astounding building. It is extremely busy, and it is coming up on May 13th. We'll be hosting the 10-year celebration of CASA. We're really excited to open the building. It'll be open that day for free workshops, tours, probably a little bit of cake to celebrate, and then wrapping up in the evening with hopefully an outdoor concert, if weather permitting, otherwise indoor concert, with Oscar Lopez, who was the inaugural concert performer at CASA back in 2013. So we're really delighted with the lineup of events that people are going to be able to come in. And it is really an open and welcoming place, like I say, for people of all ages, all abilities to come and try art, or just to come and look at art and experience it.
Sounds like there's going to be a lot going on for sure. So for new residents of Lethbridge, can you maybe describe what's available to them at CASA?
Yeah, so I think there are multiple things. There's certainly structured classes. So if you're interested in doing art training at sort of in any discipline, like I said, the conservatory offers music. There's clay classes. The Weaving Guild offers weaving classes, textiles, painting, drawing. There's really a strong program of classes available. There is a main gallery exhibition space that has art exhibitions that rotate on a about 8-week cycle, plus many spaces within the building. There are meeting rooms that if you need to have a meeting, you're able to rent. The community room, Friday recitals, all kinds of recitals and programs that are put on by the various arts organizations and groups within the community happening all the time. So there is a lot, either as like I say, a participant, or as an audience member. Check the website for those opportunities. There's a lot. We also, I think, offer a number of programs that are more targeted and specific that we are very proud of. We have an AMAPA program, which is a program that's offered for ability. It's an arts ability program for the community that was started in the Bowman many years ago, that supports people who are experiencing various challenges to come in and do art within the facility. We run a program called RAW that also came over from Bowman days, which is for people who are facing life challenges, maybe perhaps transitioning into new housing or out of homelessness. So a free access program for those folks. An artist residency program for artists who are developing their careers to come into the building and be able to create work in our studios, our art studios, free of charge to develop projects, and in exchange give back workshops or talks, community access programming. So there's a lot that goes on in that building.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. You would never know that. So, with spring is here now, so with April and summer quickly approaching, what events can people look forward to this spring and summer? And I believe you have a Making It Big in Lethbridge theme for this summer as well.
So one of the gallery projects that happens is called the Summer Salon. So it's a different theme every year. We've established, the curator, Darcy Logan, established that program a number of years ago. So the salon is really an uncurated opportunity for artists to submit around a theme, and as many of the works as we can possibly exhibit go up. And so this summer, the theme is Making It Big, and making it big means things that are different to different artists. So there are artists who work large, typically, so we're pushing them to work bigger. But for someone who's used to painting, a 4x6, or a photographer who does 4x6, pushing them to move beyond the normal parameters of their arts practice and try creating a little larger, a little bigger than they normally would. So that's a really exciting initiative. The other successful program that we're running for, I believe, the third season is our Upside Downtown concert series. The series started during COVID, as we were coming out of COVID, as an outdoor concert to give opportunity to the community. Free concerts with local musicians. Thursday night, it's sort of an after work opportunity, 5 to 7, come to the plaza at Rotary Square and enjoy some free music. Great initiative that's been growing. Our audiences have been growing. And this year, we're just in the process of completing a large program grant that we received to do shade sales. So it's going to be a little shaded and a little cooler, hopefully. A big project that was supported by Prairies Can and the Community Foundation that we're really pleased to sort of activate that Rotary Square. So that will be going on through the months of July and August, and then going into September, the Alberta Month of the Artist and Arts Days and all of those wonderful things, which are really activities that we coordinate out of our 7th Street Arts Leadership Office as the Allied Arts Council.
Wow. Well, I know that the AAC also includes developing local artist talent, and we're almost out of time, but really quickly, I understand that there are some scholarships and awards that are available, and maybe talk about what they are and how can people nominate an artist in their life for an award or a scholarship?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. We're coming into that award season. So I think we're like 15 years ago, we established the Mayor's Luncheon for Business in the Arts, which is an opportunity to acknowledge how important it is that business supports, the civic government supports, and the arts community supports and work together to create that strong ecosystem. And as part of that event, which is held in September, we do award to artists, and the nominations close, I believe, at the end of May. There's information on our website under the artist opportunities. There's a link called Awards and Scholarships, but we award to individuals, businesses, and organizations that philanthropically contribute either through volunteerism or through funding to the arts. Those are general community members that make the arts a great thing in our community, support the artists and the arts organization. We also have awards for young and emerging artists, which are scholarship based to help them on their way, and a very important peer recognition award, the Joan Waterfield Memorial Award, which is about those artists and in our community and arts administrators and the arts builders, one of whom was Joan Waterfield, huge in the theater world, who contribute and ensure that Lethbridge really continues to be the dynamic arts center that it really is. The sort of unknown secret. We are a thriving, strong arts community.
Absolutely, we are. No question. Absolutely. Yeah. We're out of time, but Suzanne, thanks so much for your time today. It was great to chat with you about the Allied Arts Council.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. That was Allied Arts Council's Executive Director, Suzanne Lind. I'm Jeanette Roche. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks so much for joining us.